What is going on, my Guardian gamers? Hi, Birdman, back with a Warlock build. Yes, I am doing a Warlock build. I know we're used to the Titan stuff and a few Hunter things, so this will be my very first inaugural Warlock build, so please be gentle to me in the comments if I do everything wrong. I have no idea what I'm doing with this character 90% of the time, but with this setup specifically in these new exotic gauntlets, this setup is pretty juicy. I really like it a lot. But before we get into everything, know you can follow me over on YouTube and Twitter at Birdman778. Make sure you're giving a thumbs up on the video, commenting some of your interest in seeing down below, whether it's Titan, Hunter, or Warlock, subscribing to the channel, and becoming a member. Now, let's swing right on into this. Now, as always, we like to show off what exotic is going to be pertinent for this endgame setup, and it is going to be the Briarbinds exotic gauntlets. These were introduced in Season of the Witch, and they are freaking awesome. I am a huge fan of Void all around, and having, more Void exotics is really cool in my mind. And the armor perk reads one with the Void. Your Void souls have a longer duration. They also gain escalating damage and durability as they defeat targets. You can retrieve your Void souls by interacting with them and allowing them to be redeployed. So you can essentially have this army of these Void souls constantly going around. You're only able to pick up one at a time, so you can't like stack a bunch of them, but you know that these can be great for constantly, just zoning out certain spots of the map and kind of leaving like almost think of like a Wither Horde kind of like circle in a way where pretty much anytime an enemy walks in that zone, they're going to be damaged. So you can take full advantage of a bunch of Void Oversouls, just absolutely decimate everyone with Void energy. For our subclass, we're obviously going Void Walker, and for the super, I recommend Cataclysm. Obviously, you can go into something like Vortex or Nova Warp if you want, but I just think this one has the lowest cooldown and does a bunch of damage, and it's great against bossing, especially on the weeks where you have that Void Surge for you, especially with the Vanguard playlist, or for Nightfalls as well. It's just really good damaging, and it's something that's pretty easy to get back. So constantly chuck this thing around. You will not have to worry too much about it. When it comes to our abilities, I recommend using Healing Rift, since it's kind of a get out of jail free card when it comes to health a lot of times. Now, obviously you can go with Empowering Rift if you want, but I just think the healing is a way better option all around. We're kind of locked in with our melee with that pocket singularity, but absolutely take full advantage of this. It's going to make targets volatile, so you're able to get those big Void explosions off, and it's obviously really great against barrier champions, so adds a little extra depth to this endgame setup. For our grenade, I recommend Vortex, just because it's absolutely stupid. It pulls enemies in, continuously damages them, and it's really useful again with these Void souls we're going to be using for this setup, since it keeps them in a certain area of effect constantly. For our aspects, I recommend Feed the Void, defeating a target with a Void ability to activate Devour, and while Devour is active, Final Blows restore health and extend Devour. Now, if you don't know what Devour is, feast on the energy of your defeated foes. Final Blows restore you to full health, grant grenade energy, and extend Devour. So it's going to be a great, just kind of like ebb and flow, constantly check your grenade, get that Devour going, and also, defeating a target with the Void ability, it can also be your melee or those Void buddies as well. Speaking of Void buddies, you want to get Child of the Old Gods. It reads, cast your Rift to create a Void Soul. When you damage a target with your weapon, your Void Soul flies to them and drains them, doing damage and weakening them. When a target is being drained, you are granted grenade and melee energy if running Healing Rift, or health if running Empowering Rift. Defeating a target who is being drained by your Void Soul grants class ability energy. So this entire thing is just an absolute juicer for all three of your abilities. So take full advantage of it. Again, with the Briarbinds, you're able to activate more of these and kind of like turn them even more juicy than they already are. So I can see why a lot of people are using this in endgame setups, and I'm definitely using it in mine. For our fragments, I recommend Echo of Persistence. Your Void buffs applied to you, that being invisibility, overshield, Devour, having increased duration. We want to take full advantage of that Devour and have it as much as humanly possible, so it is definitely worth it. Echo of Instability is next. Defeating a target with your grenade grants volatile rounds. Now, the weapon that I recommend for this setup is obviously a Void weapon. You can obviously use any Void weapon to take advantage of this, but I think with the one that we're using, the Void rounds are absolutely freaking stupid. And again, they also add a barrier champion stun to them, so volatile is good against them. Take full advantage of this. Echo of Undermine, your Void grenade weakens targets. Obviously this is great because you're gonna be constantly chucking grenades with this setup, so you'll always be able to weaken targets. This is probably the best against something like a boss level enemy, just pure off the fact that you're able to hit them with that, get that weakening, So they have that slow movement speed and take increased damage. And then finally, Echo of Harvest, defeating a weakened target creates a orb of power and a void breach. Obviously, we're going to be doing a lot of weakening. We like those orbs of power just so we're able to, get our super back fast, get certain armor charges unlocked, stuff like that. But the void breach is great because it will give us extra class ability energy when we need it most. Now, I mentioned a weapon that I really recommend for this setup, and that is going to be the Graviton Lance. I had a lot of people yelling at me with a lot of my other Void Titan builds for not using this as much, so I decided to listen to them and use it, and it is freaking stupid. The intrinsic trait, second shot of a burst rips a hole through space-time, which I have no idea what that freaking means, but doing high damage and recoil with no fall off. It's absolutely juicy. Then you also have the cosmology trait. Kills with this weapon cause an enemy's target to detonate and spawn void projectiles that track targets. Really, really stupid. And then if you get the catalyst for it, is increased damage, is Warple essentially, increased damage to bosses and vehicles. And then also using the weapon to break a shield of a combatant or a guardian using their super will grant us an overshield. So it adds a lot of health to the setup as well. Obviously, the other weapons are kind of up to you, but I definitely like running something like a Deliverance or, just a fusion rifle on the top slot regardless. Because especially this season, because it's good against unstoppables, but something like Chill Clip is really good for just like stunning champions or bosses at the same time, just so you might have like a quick second to like get your stuff together, figure out what you're doing, get your class ability off, get some healing, whatever you need at that time. Now, when it comes to what armor mods you're going to be using for this setup for your helmet, I obviously recommend something like a Harmonic Siphon so that you kind of have that, ability to make orbs of power with your weapon. It's pretty much just based off of your subclass. So I think this one's really nice. We're going to be throwing a lot of grenades with the setup, so Ash's Assets is really great. And I actually changed for once, instead of doing hands-on, to Dynamo instead. Reduces your super cooldown when using your class ability near targets. Obviously, we're going to be using that Rift a lot to get those Void Souls, especially against enemies always around us. So this is definitely a solid one to use. When it comes to our gloves, I recommend an impact induction, causing damage with your melee attack, reduces your grenade cooldown. So obviously we want to be able to get that grenade back as much as humanly possible. I also did a bolting detonation, grants class ability energy when you cause damage with a grenade, kind of do an ebb and flow there. And then finally also a grenade kickstart, so that we're able to get armor charges and get our grenade back a little bit faster. On our chest piece, I decided to go double concussive dampener and then a charged up, so that we're able to get a little bit more armor charges so that we can get a stack of 4 to use for our Briarbinds and get a lot more grenades thrown in the setup. And then obviously concussive dampener is great for just reducing that area of effect. Obviously, these are sometimes ones that you can choose depending on like the activity that you're doing. If it's something where like an arc surge is like active all the time, definitely go with arc, but you get what I mean. On our boots, I decided to go with an innervation so that when we pick up an orb of power, it's going to give our grenade a bit of a cooldown and a recuperation, so we get a little bit of health. This one's not as necessary. This is one that you can maybe swap over to like an invigoration or something like that. But I definitely think elemental charge is important for this so that whenever we pick up those void breaches, we are getting an armor charge. And then finally on our class item, a distribution so that we get cooldowns whenever we use our class ability near targets, bombers so that we get grenade cooldown, and then a powerful attraction so we can grab all those orbs of power around whenever we activate our rift. When it comes to our artifact, you pretty much want us to focus on like the tier 3 and up. Obviously the elemental orbs void is an important one because it will make targets volatile, which is great against those barrier champions. In the tier 4 elemental fury, so that we're doing more damage to our champions. Communal pickups, so that our cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds and we gain bonus damage. And then also refreshing pickups, so that whenever we pick up an elemental orb, that gives us a little bit energy back to our least powered ability. And then the final slot, monochromatic for that extra damage boost, and also rapid fire ranger for the weakening against targets that we're constantly hitting with a precision hit. Typically, I'll give suggestions on what you can swap in and out of this. I definitely don't think the Graviton Lance is an absolute must. I think it's a really solid weapon, especially because it's a phenomenal primary, but something also like a Wave Splitter would be super applicable, or something like a funnel web as well. Thanks so much for watching the video. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. Again, I really do like this Warlock build, but be expecting a few more things about Titans coming up here soon. I actually am thinking about working on a Titan beginner build and also revisiting the Bonk Hammer build to see if it is still endgame viable in 2023 and season 22. Likely it is, but you know, it's a fun video topic to talk about. As always, make sure you follow me over on YouTube and Twitter at Birdman778, liking the video, commenting something you're interested in seeing down below, subscribing, and becoming a member. Guys, thanks so much for the support on the recent videos, and thanks for watching today. I hope you have a great night, day, or whatever it may be.